Hello, I'm Blythe, and I'm one of the bird keepers here at Brookfield Zoo. We are back at Kopje, but we're going to focus on the Taveta golden weavers today. They're very excited because I gave them a really nice form of enrichment, one of their favorite, and it's something that's very seasonal. They are having a great time over here with some palm plants that I've offered them. I'm sure they'll come back down in a second, since this is the first time that I've offered it to them. But the palms are important to them because we are currently in the middle of breeding season, and so it's starting to ramp up, and for this species, it's the males that build the nests. So all these brilliantly golden birds are the males of the population. Females are a little lighter in coloration, but right now it's the boys who live in here. They're called weavers because they do build their own nests, which is something that is unique to certain birds. Because some birds adopt nests from others, some nest in cavities like our starlings in here, whereas these guys actually build their own intricate nests. The way that they do that is these guys, despite their very small size, have really strong feet and beaks, and they intricately weave all the plant material together. I have a nest from a past season, since they are still doing their home renovations right now. But you can see how they've intricately woven it together. They're nature's best crocheters. I wonder if we learned it from them. But they use live plants, dried grasses, anything they can get their beaks on to weave the nest together. And then there's a cavity inside, and the eggs sit in there. The boys are the ones who build it, and so when we do have the females in here, the girls don't participate in the nest building, but they do come around and inspect, so they manage the project and decide if it's good enough for them. The better built the nest, the more attractive the male is for breeding. So generally for these guys, it's the older males that usually are doing most of the breeding, because they do live in big colonies and they have a very intricate social order. And part of that is, you can see where they kind of started to build a nest up there. They start at the kind of junction of a branch and they build out. But as they get older, they learn how to build better nests. So usually the females prefer their nests over a young guy who's still trying to figure out how to properly stitch everything together.
Well, yeah, they don't want their babies to fall out.
They do not want their babies to fall out.
So having skills is a definite attraction.
Mm-hmm.
So how long will it take for them to make these nests? I apologize if you already said. I was looking at the birds.
It's fair enough. It depends more so on how much plant material they have. So if they have an abundance of material at their disposal, it probably only takes them a couple of weeks.
Oh, only a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But it kind of depends, because they'll get a pretty good start after a couple of weeks, but they'll add to it if they think that it's not good enough, or if they've had issues with eggs falling through. They lay, I think, 3 to 4 eggs, but usually I think 2 fledge out. So it's more so as an insurance policy.
And how many birds are in, or how many weavers specifically?
Currently there are about 20 males in here. Our total flock is at 57, but we've split the girls and juveniles out, since that's our max holding capacity.
So we're very successful then.
So they are very successful parents. They are very good at what they do. And so for now, they're taking a little break, and the girls have gone over to another African aviary.
But the males will still be making their nests?
Yes.
Oh, that's neat.
It's more so about the time of year. They seem to pay attention to lighting changes. And so as the days get longer, that's when it's time, because they want to breed when things are most in abundance, and that's when you have more sun, so everything grows more like the plants they use to nest, along with having enough food available to feed their chicks. So these guys more so breed at the end of spring and height of summer, but with these guys here, we've had fledglings as late as October as well.
Wow. So I was trying to get a little bit closer because I don't know how easy it is for everybody to see on the video, but they did not like that. But they actually like strip little pieces off of the leaves. They don't just like, take the whole leaf.
No, they want to use really fine material, and that's how they're adapted with their beak and feet to really pull and hold on to, but they strip it so that they more so have a thread rather than like a whole ribbon. Because when they're able to do these fine interlocking, it's almost like when you look at like the different weaves on a blanket. If you have something that's more of a chunky weave, more stuff can fall through the holes. Whereas these guys want more of a finer weave. Since they're smaller birds, they have small eggs and they want that proper support.
Now, how big of a group would live in the wild?
It kind of depends on where they're based, because they can live in really large colonies in terms of like a couple hundred birds. I think some people have even reported like a couple thousand. It depends more so on resources, because they'll split off and fragment in terms of like habitat, in terms of proper nesting materials, as well as, since there is a high social order, and I'm sure younger boys want to get a chance to breed as well, they might not stay with their home flock if they can go out and start somewhere new.
How long does it take for the eggs to hatch?
I think just under 2 weeks.
Wow.
So it's very fast, and they fledge in about 2 weeks as well. So all in all, it takes about a month from egg lay to having a chick out of the nest.
So this guy up here has been trying to attach this one piece since we started talking.
So that's the first piece. He's trying to tie it around the branch as kind of the first stabilizer. You can see that they're very good at what they do. It is almost like getting your first thread started, whether you're knitting or crocheting. You have to get that foundation before you can actually start building the nest. And he's holding a piece with his feet. Well, when he had it takes some trial and error. And then he uses his beak to weave it around and actually tie it off on the branch.
It does seem like it takes them a little while to get the foundation going, and once they do, it goes
very fast.
Zip, zip, zip.
Yes. Yeah, and once they have a nice base and house made, they do a display to call the females over to check it out. And if the females like the nest that they made, that is when they'll kind of shack up together. And they do raise the chicks together. Even though the females do a lot of the work, the males help as well. And since they do live in colonies, it's not necessarily that the direct mom and dad will feed the chicks. The whole community might feed a chick in the nest. So when you say it takes a village, they pay attention to that as well.
How close to other nests will they weave their nest?
Since they're in colonies, they'll be in clusters. Okay. So like kind of how there's one started right above us and how he's working on getting another one, they'll usually have them clustered.
Okay.
There is safety in numbers, and so there isn't, if they were really spread out, that would put them more at risk for predation or even for nest parasites using them. Because there are other species of birds that will try to steal nests, and when you have a kind of whole community that'll keep those guys out, the more successful they'll be.
Now, I know in the past I have seen kind of like a two-story nest where someone is building and it gets a little bit carried away. What's the biggest that their nest will get?
These guys, at least in terms of our flock here, they mostly build these compact little nests, and then you'll have them a bunch. So you might have one here, you might have one here, you might have one here. So it's these little apartments that are all clustered together.
So whoever got carried away, that was sort of an anomaly. Okay. That's kind of what I thought.
And other species of weavers build different nests. Sometimes there are weavers that will more so build a huge nest with different little ports inside. In TW Africa, they used to have a pretty big nest that it was a group of weavers built together, and there were multiple entrances and exits into it.
Oh, that's so cool. It's like a little complex.
So it kind of depends on the species as well as what building blocks they have available. Because if they have a big enough tree, they might link them more so together. It depends on, I guess, what their artistic vision is based on the species and what they have available to them.
It seems like they're pretty much all trying to get that first one going. They're all up there. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, they're very active birds. And for them, it means they can build nests anywhere. So as long as they have the building blocks, they can kind of build their community anywhere, whereas other birds like the starlings in here, they rely on cavity nests. And so they actually have to go find a spot. It's not so much based on them building the nest themselves.
Okay.
They still nest build, but they more so line whatever cavity they find with nesting material. They don't actually weave stuff together like these guys. They don't have the fine motor skills that the weavers do. And it's basically an innate knowledge. I think they know the basics and then they learn how to actually do it by trying.
Now, it is kind of funny. There were just two birds kind of tussling over who got the the little frond, because apparently it was a very good strip. Very good piece.
Yeah. These guys are a happy family, but sometimes a dysfunctional family. So they do squabble, and they want to have like the best spot or piece of palm and nesting material, and so they're very vocal about it. And usually it's the more experienced boys are the ones who'll end up coming out on top in terms of who gets the better spot and material. But as the younger guys get older, I'm sure they'll get a shot too. They kind of have to just wait for their time.
How many species are here in the Kopje?
I'm gonna have to count. We do have a pretty wide array of species in here. We have two species of turacos, who they're up overhead this way. They're the big birds. One is purple, and that's why they're called a violaceous turaco. Whereas the other is green, and because of the white patches on their cheeks, that's called a white-cheeked turaco.
They have kind of scarlet feathers on the underside of their wings when they fly. They're really pretty. And that's very unique
to them, because a lot of birds, they more so have color based on refracted light. So even though I have violet-backed starlings, where the males are bright purple, and my emerald starlings that are a bright green, when you hold those feathers up to light, they actually appear brown.
Oh, wow.
Because all that light is from, or all that color is from refracted light. Whereas for the turaco's red, they process copper differently in their feathers. And so that's a true pigment, and it's unique to them. So if you hold a turaco feather up to light, it actually appears completely red. It's an actual pigment versus kind of an illusion.
That's cool. So who's hanging out up here?
So over
I see a
here,
couple weavers. Who
I know,
else?
they're backlit. So most of these guys are starlings. So the violet back and emerald starlings that kind of complete our rainbow that's in here. The little guys, which are interspecies, they are not weavers, they are paradise whitos. And he has a back test, but right now he's in breeding plumage because he has a tail that's a little bit longer than his whole body.
Yeah.
As well as our mouse bird, who hangs on kind of like, almost like a bat. They have different structured feet, and so they perch a little differently. And then who you hear calling overhead, doing a flight display. That's a blue-bellied roller.
It almost sounds like a kookaburra.
Yeah, and she has a lot to say, and she gives the blue to our rainbow that's in here.
Very nice.
She's a little more, in terms of diets, everyone in here eats different things, and they're completely carnivorous. But the little birds don't have to worry.
Oh, good.
These guys like insects and small rodents, and so they are focused on the protein.
Okay.
They're called rollers due to their mating display. She didn't do the full thing flying around. I think that was more of like a territory thing. But when you have a pair, they'll actually roll over each other in flight, and it's they have a really elaborate courtship display.
That's cool.
And I think that covers most of our guys in here. This is a mixed species aviary, and so we have full representation in here of a lot of African birds.
Do they all get along then?
For the most part. Of course, there's some like social dynamics. So the bigger guys, like the roller, seems to demand more space, but for the most part, they're pretty gentle with the little guys, and the little guys know how to stay out of the way. They mostly get along because they all fill different niches, and so there isn't a lot of direct competition.
Okay.
Weavers, in terms of food, even though they do like insects and sometimes occasional fruit, they are mainly seed eaters along with the paradise whitas. And so they more so get a mixed seed diet, whereas our starlings are omnivores, so they like the insects, but they also eat fruit, whereas the Turacos are pure fruit eaters for the most part. And then the roller gets different little prey items that we give her. So everyone has a different dietary niche. And then in terms of where they hang out on exhibit, it's very different. Weavers tend to forage on the ground, which is why we often give them enrichment like these foraging tubs, which have nesting materials, but also we'll put insects inside for them to go and actually search for like they would naturally. So the weavers more so forage on the ground for things like insects and seeds that have dropped from plants, whereas the starlings and Turacos are more so canopy dwellers, and so they stay up high.
Oh, cool.
So they all fill different niches, and that's kind of how they get along. Very similar to any ecosystem, is you have a lot of diversity, but it's because they all play a role, and it's the same thing in this aviary.
And it is a free flight aviary.
Mm-hmm.
Are any of these birds going to come and fly into us?
No.
Okay, good. I know people always want to know. They're pretty good at avoiding me so far.
Yes. In terms of even like when we stepped closer, they all went up. They have a very high survival mechanism, even though these guys are captively bred and everything like that. So I don't think they've ever had a direct negative interaction with people, besides for when I have to catch them up and bring them to the vet. But they kind of know that we're a big, scary predator to them. So they mostly stay up and away, and they're not going to like land on you or your stroller or anything like that.
That's reassuring to know. I'm not a fan of birds. Not little birds, at least. I like big birds.
Yeah. These guys are pretty benign. They might be a little curious, but they won't get too close. Well, thank you for joining me today at Kopje. And I hope that you enjoyed learning about the birds that live here, and hopefully we'll be able to welcome you back inside here soon.